Hi, my name is Judy and I'm the City Stitcher, and welcome to my Flosstube channel. Today is Sunday, April the 18th, and if you are a returning viewer, you can probably tell from the location an indication of what the weather is. If you are new to my channel, thank you for stopping by and spending some time with me, and I hope you enjoy what you see. Before we get into the regular stuff, I'm just going to say one little note up front. I do want to say my sympathies to Queen Elizabeth II on the passing of her husband of 73 years, Prince Philip. I am living in a Commonwealth country. She is my queen, and yeah, huge amount of sympathy, a huge loss for her. 73 years married, which is longer than some people live, and she knew him for 8 years before that, so a huge gap for her, and I feel really badly for her. So I did actually get up on Saturday morning and watch the funeral and all that kind of stuff, but anyway, so my condolences to the Queen, particularly, and her family. Okay, back to the weather. So yesterday and a couple of days before that, the weather here was glorious. So Saturday was a lovely, balmy 70 degrees. The sunroom was gloriousness, stitched in there like 3 days straight. It was just fantastic. And I had checked the forecast, so I knew this was coming. So 70 degrees yesterday, 70 degrees Fahrenheit. The high today is 0 degrees Celsius or 32 degrees Fahrenheit. And it was called for in the forecast, snow overnight. So I went from 70 degrees and gloriousness to waking up this morning to see white on the ground. Excuse me. So it's not coming to stay. I had that moment where I looked out in the backyard and went, ooh, I might even have to like shovel the driveway. But the driveway was fine. I didn't have to do anything. It wasn't collecting on the driveway or the roads. There's certainly white stuff on the ground. You know, we're supposed to get back up to, you know, the mid 60s Fahrenheit towards the middle of the week, but snow forecasted again on the weekend. I know. You know, one of my glorious viewers, who was it? Magnolia Nana, who was like, you know, welcome to hope you enjoy the beginning of spring. And it's like, well, 2 or 3 days of the week it's like spring, and then it's like winter. And I recognize that we need the moisture. There are fire bans in various areas of the province, and I acknowledge we need the moisture. I would actually just like it to come in the form of rain, not the white stuff, just because it's warmer when it rains. When it's the white stuff, it's very indicative of a very specific temperature, and I don't enjoy that one quite so much at this time of year. Christmas Day, totally fine. April 18th, not so much. But not uncommon for this area, so I should be expecting this. Anyway, and with that, so just a couple of things from the comments that I got last week, and always like to say thank you for your comments. Always enjoy them. Happy to entertain comments, questions, topics you'd like me to discuss. And in fact, the topic for today is a topic that one of my viewers said, could you please talk about scroll rods? So that's our topic today, because one of you asked me to do that. I am going to say, so for Debbie HP, she left a comment where she was wanting to know about my needle threader. And she said, you know, next week while you're talking about scroll rods, could you also talk about notions? And my answer is, I don't think I'm going to have time to talk about notions, but I will do it as a topic because you've asked for it. It's probably going to be about 3 weeks from now, but there will be a topic where the video is going to be labeled, Let's Talk Tools. I should probably say stitching tools so I don't get the weird people who think it's like, you know, construction related or, you know, anyway. So I do use, and you've seen this on all of my projects. So this is the needle threader that I use, and it is a Lauren needle threader. I pick them up at my LNSs, and I'm weird enough that usually, you know, over the last number of years, periodically, you know, when I'm making a purchase randomly, I would kind of go, just one more package. Like a year ago, so the summer of 2019, I was organizing my stash and putting it into the Xstitch app. And finally got them all pulled together in one spot and went, okay, you've got enough. You're going to be fine. I don't lose them very often. So I have enough, and I have, that exercise in going through the stash was really great because it said, this little habit of, sort of like, okay, just one more package. I don't need any more. I'm good to go. So it is a Lauren needle threader. I understand that there are knockoffs that are cheaper, but for the price of these, they're not that expensive. These are the ones that I use. They stand up well over the test of time. I find the needle threaders that have the wire ends on them fall apart on me very, very rapidly. Like if I use them more than 5 or 6 times before something goes wrong with them, that's a miracle in and of itself. So I don't tend to use those ones. It probably just means that I'm really hard on my needle threaders. So these ones absolutely stand up over time. Debbie also asked if I could talk about the size of needles that fit on this. And so I can use this for needles that are size 22 through 28. So 22, 24, 26, 28, all of those fit on here. That's why there's two end. There's a smaller end and there's a larger end. So clearly the small ones don't fit on here, but the larger ones will fit on either. But if you're using a larger needle, it's potentially because you're using a bigger thread like a pearl cotton or a Caron watercolors. And when I'm using not floss and not silk, I use this larger end. That's what I use for threading my needles. Yeah, found these early in my stitching career, and after I'd had all the problems with the ones with the wire ends, these ones worked, stand up well. I don't lose them. This is my choice. But yeah, so they are the Lauren, and I'm just looking at my notes going, I think that answers your questions. Debbie, if you've got any more, hey, as I said, feel free to pop them in the comments down below. I'm more than happy to address them. Okay. Move that over. So then some of the other comments. So Denise, I'm glad you enjoyed my comment about the post-it notes make a really easy 3x3. She says that she tends to go 4x4. The nice part about the 3x3 is once you get 3x3, it's not that much farther to get to 4x4. So even if you estimated, moving diagonally in a little bit more, you're going to be pretty close to 4. The post-it note gets you a long way there right off the get-go. As well, I'd like to thank all of you who have provided your positive comments on how much you're enjoying my Anne Morrison and how you like how it looks, which is great because I'm thrilled with my color choices. I think it's coming along swimmingly. And for Charlotte on my Marbeck, yeah, when we get closer to the end of Marbeck, you and I think you and I should have a little bit of a chat because I think you might actually need to be there for when the final stitch goes in. I don't know that I want to show everybody this last stitch, but when we're getting close, you of all people, I think might actually need to be there to actually watch the final stitch go into the never-ending nativity. But thank you for the comments. All right. And with that, since we ended with Charlotte and the never-ending nativity, let's start with Charlotte and the never-ending nativity. So here we are. Center panel of the Marbeck or Serendipity Nativity. That's not looking so good. Let's see if I can't brighten that up a bit without blowing everything out. Okay, let's try that. So this is, again, so the Bethlehem Star, this is the top part of the center panel. Currently working on the Glorious Angel over here. And so the other interesting thing about doing these videos is because usually when I get to the end of the week, I honestly, it's not uncommon for me to go like, I don't actually remember where I started the week, but I always have a video that I can go back to and go, what did that look like last week, last Sunday? And I think I have made great progress this week. So here we are over here. So I can't, okay, I forgot to check this part. So whatever happens, so all of this one particular color down here in the bottom part for this angel is now complete. That color is done. But it does give you the aspect of how big this So this is kind of like the border around the front part of it. Comes up this back. So that gives you an idea of how big the area is. The nice thing about it is I think it's about a total of 4 colors, maybe, that are in there. So won't be horrendous. But I have officially filled in all of the DMC here in the center part. So what I'm going to start tonight is I'm going to start working on her arm, because the arm will take me up to the top part so I can do the arm and the face and all that kind of stuff. So then I'm going to scroll up a little bit. So again, because my intention is to finish off these top parts of the angels, both on this one, as well as there's a bit of this wing over here that is left to get done. And then at that point, so when I finish those, I'm also going to make sure that I fill in all of the Krynic that are in these top 2 bits, as well as the back stitching that belongs up for both of these angels. So there's back stitching in both of these angels. So once I do that, now there's some outlining that goes along the just around the outside of this area here on both sides. I won't do that until I get the bottom gets completed, because it sort of runs into some of the stitching that goes along down here. And I always do the back stitching, well, second to last. So back stitching before beads. Alphabetical. Anyway, I'm also going to do a little bit of this. See if that helps. Okay. Anywho, so there's, and again, so I went back and looked at my video from last week and looked at it, and I went, actually, you've made quite a bit of progress, because I've gotten all of this stuff completed and filled in. So happy with my progress for this week. We'll talk about the progress that needs to happen a little bit later, but so far happy with what's been going on this week. So that is the Never-Ending Nativity. Just trying to figure out with all the stuff that I have over here, I'm not exactly sure where the best spot. There, let's put that there. All right. So that's one. The second one, which I've worked on this week, is of course my focus piece for April. So April and Morrison, or Anne Morrison April. This is a pattern from Hands Across the Sea. This is one of the exclusive 20th anniversary designs for Traditional Stitches here in Alberta, just outside of Calgary. This is out of print. So if you try to go and find that right now, you can't find it. This was a limited edition. It is out of print. You can't, you could only ever get it from Traditional Stitches. They are now out of stock. It's out of print. So your only way to get it is from someone who is willing to sell it to you, loan it to you, give it to you, all those kinds of things. Just while I'm on that topic, if you don't know, Traditional Stitches also has an exclusive Blackbird design called What Remains is Love. That is also available only from Traditional Stitches. I will put a link to that in the notes below. They are currently taking orders, but they are sending out the orders in waves. So wave number 1 was completed, I think, last week. They're going to start shipping wave number 2, but all of those details are on the webpage. If you have any questions about it, give that page a read, because it has a lot of information. If you were to place an order right now, you would be part of the 4th wave of shipments that they're planning on sending out, which is going to take place, which they're hoping to take place sort of towards the beginning of July. And again, this just has to do with managing the supply of, so the charts they have, but again, they're doing it based on order date. But fabric from Weeks Dye Works, cotton, hand-dyed cotton floss from Weeks Dye Works and Gentle Arts. There might be a classic Colorworks in there, I don't remember. And then they also have some silk packs from Fibers to Dye For. And again, so all of those are hand-dyed, so the reason for the waves of shipments is just to make sure that they've got the regular supply flowing to get all of it. So that's the reason for that. Anyway, and while I'm here on supply chain things, okay, let's just have a quick chat. I was watching somebody on Flosstube, and they made the comment, I'm not going to name them because I totally disagree with their comment. They made the comment that as far as they were concerned, all the supply chain issues, you know, they should be fixed by now and everything should be back to normal, and so there's no reasons for there to be issues. That is categorically not true. So picture this plus. I know that I've been talking about this for quite some time. I ordered some fabric from my LNS back in like late August, early September. I know that the order from my LNS went in early September. I know that my fabric has arrived at the store and is ready for me to come and pick up. So that has been January, February, March, like 7.5 months from the time she placed the order to receive it. And again, you've heard me go on and on about this. So that's what it's taking. And, you know, she's been placing orders regularly with them, but they are taking about 7.5 months to get a shipment from them. And that has not improved. That's the timeline that's being experienced by all of the shops to get their stuff turned around. So the difference between, so some of the shops show you real-time inventory. Traditional Stitches does not show you real-time inventory, but they will, when you place your order, they will get back to you saying whether or not the item is in stock and what their expected time frame is. They're hoping to receive that. Again, there's still issues for the suppliers in our world. For example, somebody was looking for one of the DMC color cards, and they were looking for it with the actual threads on it, and we're like, I'm having a terrible time. Why is this a problem? The answer is because DMC has been having supply chain issues, and they've been using all of their supply to try to get the actual floss out the door to shops. So they're not using their thread to make the color cards. So, I mean, it will come back, but right now, yeah, that's not where their focus is. Krynic for sure is still experiencing quite a big delay in, I don't know exactly what the problem is, but they are struggling about filling their orders. I think some of their machines are still being tasked with producing supplies for personal protective equipment, for healthcare workers, which again, given the current situation, I am all for. My stitching supplies should take a back seat to keeping healthcare workers protected. I'm absolutely behind that. I know it can be frustrating when you can't find the thing that you want, and you know, it will be months before my LNS gets another shipment from them, and I'm not even sure that they have a good estimate as to when that may occur. So if you're hearing, for all of you who are my lovely friends and viewers, please know that there are still struggles in the supply chain. If you hear people saying, I don't understand, this should be all fixed by now, that's not happening. There are still a lot of supply chain issues across the board in a variety of ways. I feel like the pattern flow has gotten a little bit better. You know, you're still going to have a delay if you have a pattern that's being shipped from overseas. So I'm clearly in North America. So if you've got patterns that are coming from Europe, or if you've got patterns that are coming from Australia, those are still going to be delayed because the level of shipments coming from those, the level of flights to take mail between the continents is still down from what it was pre the beginning of the lockdown a year ago. So some of the things are coming back there, but there are still delays. So if you have friends who are saying everything should be fixed, this is not a problem, please gently remind them, no, there are still issues in the supply chain, and we need to be patient, and we need to be supportive of our shops. If you place an order, please honor your order, because generally the shops that I deal with largely are, you know, small business owners. So let's support them, and if we place an order, honor that order. Okay, that's my soapbox for the moment. Okay, back to Anne Morrison. Anne Morrison, blah, 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 blah. Chart. Here it is. I, of course, have changed quite a few things on this. And actually, and now that I look at this, I should, I can do better on how I show this. So let me adjust my scroll rod a little bit for you. Okay, here we go. Here is my Anne Morrison. So I was catching up with a friend of mine last week, and I said, so when I showed the fabric, could you really see the difference? And she was like, no, not really. Like, but in real life, I promise you that if you were to see these two pieces of fabric, that they would not look the same. So I will tell you again, I am stitching this on a 32 count linen from Zweigart called Vintage Blue Whisper. This is elderly linen from my stash. So the whole point of the comment that I was making last week is that if you were to go out and you were to buy a piece of Vintage Blue Whisper linen right now, it is not going to look like this fabric. It's bright. It's a little bit brighter. I'm glad I had this in my stash. I think this is the perfect fabric for this particular piece. And so what have I accomplished this week? So now that I had made the decision about what this color for this border was going to be, I ripped out this side because this is where I tried the other color and finished that. So that got accomplished. As you may be able to tell, I have not solved my color issue here for this particular thing. And so the answer is I would rather not rush to make a decision about changing it and be unhappy with it yet again. I think I should wait a little bit longer while I'm assessing my options. And then we'll go from there. So what did I do? Well, when you can't make a decision, just move along. So I came down here and I completed all of this alphabet on this row. I will say that I have respaced this a little bit because again, I have a problem. I need my things to look reasonably symmetrical. Not even necessarily symmetrical, balanced I think is a better adjective. So I have adjusted my spacing in this one. I'm happy with my decisions. I love how that one looks now. The funny thing is when I came down to start the red one, I was looking at the chart and went, oh great, I can just start from the bottom stitch in this A and just count down and go from there. And then I looked at my work and went, no, you can't because you've moved this. This has been moved over, so this is not, you can't count down from the A. You have to count down and then make sure you're where you want to start in from the border. Now, it's not like it took me forever to catch that. I just looked down and went, oh yeah, wait, you can't do what you think you're going to do. Adjust your counting method. So I've started this one. I was really hoping before this video that I would have a chance to finish off this last little bit of the alphabet, but I didn't get that accomplished. Now, there is a border between this light blue band and the red band. And that has not been done because according to the chart, that color is the same as the color that goes here. And since I haven't decided on this color, I haven't done the band. I am also reserving judgment saying, I don't know that I'm necessarily going to want that color in here. And if I don't like that, then the default color becomes navy blue. So I'm going to finish this one, and then believe it or not, I'm going to skip the next border for the moment and then do the next alphabet band below that, and then revisit what I think the border in between these two should be. Because as you know, I'm changing the chart, I'm changing the colors, so there's no reason that I can't so particularly in this next border, I think I'm going to change the color the way that one goes, and I just haven't quite decided. I have an idea in my head about what it's going to look like, but I feel like I need to get the next band in get this border pulled down, and then, you know, again, do a sample of what I think it's going to look like. I might end up doing 2 samples and having to decide from that part. But there's my Anne Morrison. I'm very happy with how she's coming along. Now again, she's not going to get finished in the month of April. I don't think, you know, don't get me wrong, it is the 18th. You know, I have a third of the month left. I am not a third of the way through it. I am down to there. I have a third, sorry, I'm a third of the month, I have a third of the month of April left. So I've used up 2/3 of April. I am clearly not 2/3 of the way through this chart, which means when we get to the end of April, this is going to be another one that goes away. Anywho, we're going to be talking about things. So that leads me into my Stitch from Stash report for this week, which technically, so I did make a stop at one of my LNSs. I had to pick up a couple of things that I get through them. I didn't bring them up to show you. We're going to do that as part of next week's video because I was worried that the amount of time and things that I have to say about frames is going to be lengthy. So we're going to do that next week. So I have made a purchase from there. And then I was doing some math, which originally at the beginning of the week I was okay. I'd done a couple of weird things, which we're going to talk about next week as well. Then I had a friend phone me and she tempted me again, only this time I did not resist for reasons which I'm still fine with what I did. So I put in another order. It could easily come in April. That's going to take up all of my budget it will take up all of my budget till the end of June for that little, for that purchase. Again, don't regret the purchase. I'm totally on board. I like the items that I've put in. I know I've made that decision, which we'll talk about next week. But it does put a little bit of a crimp into a couple of things that are going on, which we'll talk about. So technically, I spent a little bit of money this week. You'll see those things next week. And next week we'll talk a little bit more about my Stitch from Stash. So I don't know how well this is going to work out for me. I'm having to rethink. I'm having to do some thinking about some things and planning, and some of those supply chain issues are factoring into how I'm thinking about this. So I need to do some thinking. So I'm expecting by next week that I will have come to some conclusions, I'm hoping. Anyway, tune in next week and see how Judy's dilemmas are working out. All right. So that is the stitching for this week. I will say, given the spending this week, man, I need to hurry up my stitching on those lovely, the Never-Ending Nativity so I can get that done. Anyway, gosh, there's a lot of stuff around here. All right. All of them have roles to play. So with that, let's talk about the topic. So yes, I was asked if I would talk about scroll rods, frames that I use for my stitching. More than happy to, because I have quite a few things. I've tried quite a few things. I have opinions on quite a few things, and I will absolutely caveat this saying these are absolutely my opinions and my opinions alone. They relate to my personal experience using these products in conjunction with my personal style of stitching, and everybody's different. So whatever, if I sort of say this is the most awesome thing ever and I really don't like some other product and you go, oh my goodness, that's totally opposite of mine, I would completely do the reverse. That's okay too, because it's your stitching, you have to make it work for you. And if you have a totally different experience, that's great. That's your experience, and I think fantastic, which is why there's a variety of products. I just realized, so the thing that I don't have beside me is a hoop, which when I looked over, I was like, I probably should have started with a hoop. So I, like many, when I started my very first stitching, 147 years ago, I started on a hoop. And it was fine. Quite frankly, my family, the stitchers in my family, only ever used hoops or scroll rods. I certainly at that time, there wasn't a lot of other choices for what you could use. But I will say, once I discovered QSnaps, I ditched my hoops for QSnaps because I find these easier to use. So these come in a variety of sizes. I'm going to do my 6x6, 8x8, 11x11, 11x17, I think is the largest one you can get. You can get 3-inch extender bars. So like you could make the 11 like 14x14 if you wanted, or 14x20 on the other one. I don't have any of those 3-inch extenders, but they also mix and match. So if you have an 8x8 and an 11x11, you can use, your two 11s on two opposite sides and the 8x8s on the other. So they are interchangeable. I will say I do have a friend who I think is hysterical. She usually gets her husband to put her QSnaps together because she says if she tries to put them together, it usually ends up as a triangle. I don't know how she gets a triangle out of this, but I'm going like, one of these days when you get it to be a triangle, could you please show me? And I think it's really just because she says she struggles getting them together correctly, which that's not a struggle for me. So, but I really enjoy the story. I always have these visions of her ending up with a QSnap that's in the shape of a triangle. Entertainment for me. I will say that there are some people who struggle with the QSnaps because they find that the clamps are too hard to pull off. So for me, I don't generally find that to be a problem. So you put your fabric on here and then I just sort of, push it to make sure that it's taut. And this is a way where I can get it taut in all 4 directions, which is why I like a QSnap. For a fabric that is reasonably within these dimensions. If you look at what I've been using, all of this year for all of my projects, it's been pretty scroll rod heavy just because of the nature of the fabrics. I think if you'll remember back when I started Jerusalem, I didn't get my scroll rod for that until right before I think I did a couple of days with it on a QSnap, and seriously, so that's where I flipped from a QSnap to a scroll rod, is there was just way too much fabric. I couldn't handle the fabric. It was really unwieldy, and I couldn't get those scroll rods fast enough, and get my fabric onto it just to go like, whew, okay, now I don't have to deal with the fabric. There are lots of people who are comfortable with a lot more fabric around their sides. And let's not kid ourselves. I've got all of those things. I need to go back and talk about these. Sorry. So the other thing is that people find that over time that these don't clamp tightly enough. If you go to the Google and you research, there's always articles on the web what people have done. I'm not going to tell you what the options are because I can say that I personally have never tried them, so I can't speak to them at all. I've had my QSnaps for years and years and years and years, and even now I do not have a problem with the level of tightness. I don't use anything with them. I will say the only thing I think is if you're using like maybe a heavier fabric like an Aida or something where the count is lower than that it might impact it. But again, that's not my experience. I can't speak to it. I will also say that I use the QSnap brand. I have not used any of the other brands that you can get at some of the other stores. So there's that as well. I will say that for the people who find them loose, sometimes they take that shelf liner stuff. It's a little bit plasticky just because they find it helps with the tightness. Again, can't speak to it because I personally have never done that, never used it, can't do it. I will say, for those of you who like your stuff to be pretty and you don't find this pretty enough, there have been, so here's, they did come out at a couple of the Nashvilles with pretty replacement clamps so that you could pretty up your QSnap. They were limited edition. I don't know if they're still available. But of course, they said they were limited edition when they were putting them out, which meant I immediately rushed. I remember, so these were specifically, this was the first pair set that came out, and this was the second pair. And I immediately, on those Nashville days at my LNS, I immediately rushed in there and grabbed my QSnap clamps because I was like, I want the pretty ones. And I had a friend who, she wasn't really a big QSnap. She's like, I might need to start using QSnaps because I want to use the clamps. So that's for the people who sort of go, it needs to look pretty. So those are options if they're still available. Again, don't know if they're still available, but you might be able to find them on a Stash Unload site or something like that if they're not. Okay, so in terms of dealing with the excess fabric, I talked about these when people were talking about them before, and I'm going to just use it over here on Anne, where one of the ways is that if you had a bunch of fabric, you can get these, they've got magnets on the end. Now this is my concession to pretty. I got the ones that are the stars, not the circles, but they're magnets. And again, when I did those first couple of days on Jerusalem, I tried them with the magnets and they didn't work. So all you would need to do is sort of bundle it around. And then of course, the two ends of the magnet will hook together to contain your fabric. Now, again, I do think my issue when I was doing it with Jerusalem is that the sheer magnitude of the fabric was out of control. And these poor little magnets, where I feel like they're actually pretty good magnets, they just were not dealing well with the quantum of fabric. So I think it's not necessarily that this is a failure of these particular items. I just think it was the volume of fabric that I had wadded up. The other thing that I also have, I don't remember what these are called. They're generally, they started off in, people were using them in the quilting world because they would put these around their spools of thread to make sure that the thread wasn't coming off. But then of course some smart little quilter who also is a stitcher went, this too can help with dealing with fabric. So you just sort of hook this over. Now, generally, again, I don't use it on a scroll rod. I'm just using this because this is the only thing that has fabric on it. You just hook them around there and that will help contain. So again, if you've got a little bit of extra and you're just trying to contain it, these work great for that, which is why I have these too. And I have used these. All right, so those are the two. The other thing that is also out there, we're still in the land of QSnaps, for containing fabric are grime guards. So just a piece of fabric with elastic on both sides. So I usually start on one end, flip it over, and it's, you know, it's like putting a bed sheet on that last corner. Anyway, right? So you can tuck your excess fabric into the room that you have here. And again, why do I have one? Because I've used these. I have a few of these in a couple of different sizes because I've got a couple of different sizes of QSnaps. So again, I've used this as well. I also like these if you're using, so like I would use a QSnap for my Nora Corbett Fairy Winter Dream. I would use a QSnap for my Nora Corbett Christmas Eve Courier's Vixen. So that's the type of project that I tend to use my QSnaps for. Anyway, so yes, that's my QSnap. It's a product I like. It's a product I use, particularly because it makes sure that your fabric is taut in all 4 directions. But again, this would not work for Jerusalem. This would not, as far as I'm concerned, this would not be good for the Marbeck Nativity Center panel. This would not be good for the My Big Toe, just because I think the piece is bigger. And yes, again, I think it just has to do with the amount of fabric that if you tried to contain it while you were using it on this, I don't think I would enjoy that, which is why I end up putting those projects on scroll rods. All right, so let's talk about scroll rods. Okay, I'm going to start with the one that I like the least. I think I used it on one project and went, no thank you. And now, I'm ridiculous enough. I think I've given away, because I've also inherited some of these, because I've inherited 2.5 stashes. My mom kept some of her stash, but you know, there's going to come a day where the rest of that comes to me, because I am the only stitcher in my entire family that's left. None of my cousins do it. Anyway, so this is a split rail scroll rod. So it is split on this one end. It is not split on the other, but it's split up to a certain point. So what you do is you slide your fabric in here, and then you put your, I'm just looking at saying I don't have that either. Wait a minute. Ah, there it is. Okay. It's like, wait a minute. I was like going, I'm missing things. And I'm like, oh, no, I've got them here. Like I said, there's a lot of things going on here. Anyway, you just put them on your end bars, and theoretically the tautness of screwing it together combined with rolling your fabric up around it should keep it intact. Like I say, I think I only ever used this once. I was not happy with how it worked out, and I went, okay, that's the end of that. I will say in my stash of scroll rods, I only have 1 pair of these, and I think it came to me in sort of this last batch of stuff that came to me, and I think I kept them because the only reason why I kept them is I think I looked at my scroll rods and I went, they might come in handy for something. But like I say, used it once, didn't particularly enjoy it, only have 1 in my stash. So that's the split rail scroll rods. Okay. I'm just trying to figure out where to put them so that I don't get confused around what I do or do not have. And so from there, I moved on to the scroll rods that have this canvas webbing on it. And what I do is I just baste my fabric onto this, which I'm fine with these. These were originally called American Dream products, which I think they're now called Easy Stitch. I will put links to as many of these things that are available at Traditional Stitches that are on their website. They don't have all of it, but I will put the links that I have. So these come in 2 different diameters. I don't know what the smaller one is called, which is what this is. But they also have ones that are called heavy duty, which they have a bigger diameter. And once you get to a certain size, I don't think you have a choice. I think you have to take them in a heavy duty. So for example, for Jerusalem, I'm pretty sure that those scroll rods, because they're 36-inch scroll rods, I think you can only get them in 36. I think they're 36-inch scroll rods. I think you can only get them in the heavy duty just because of how wide it is. And the concern is that, you know, the smaller diameter wouldn't hold up over that length. So they come in those 2 diameters. They both have the webbing. For me, one of the things that you need to remember when you're basting it on, you can't just sort of don't just lightly lay your fabric on top of this and baste. You know, I firmly put a couple of knots in one end, and as I'm basting across, you do need to try to pull your fabric taut as it's coming across, just to, because otherwise if you don't, that's where you can get sort of like the rippling effect as you're coming across, which means it won't necessarily be taut from top to bottom. So those are the ones that come with webbing on them. And I have those in a variety, clearly, I have them in a variety of sizes. I have others that are on long-term projects, like Jerusalem. You know, I got that one, I basted it on and went, thanks for playing. It's going to be on that thing for years and years and years. So those are the ones with webbing. They also have a version that has, you use these tapes. So this is sort of like a Velcro effect thing. I should have looked up what the name of them is. So I have these, actually it should be on this bag over here. Oh, give me a minute. Anyway, so what it is this is again, I feel it's really hard to see there. So you can see that it's got like the soft part of a Velcro, the two sides of a Velcro on that is glued onto the scroll rod. And what you do is you get, this is called, if you're trying to order it and you already have some of these in camera, this is the fabric side tape. And again, so it's got glue on the inside, and you stick this onto your fabric. This has got the harder part of the Velcro, and then that way you can just sort of Velcro your fabric onto your scroll rod. Now, pros and cons to this. One of the pros that I really, really like is that it means you can take multiple projects on and off your scroll rod. Right? So you could have 3 projects that all fit on this scroll rod, and as long as each of your projects had the tape applied, you could take one off and you could put the other one on, no problem. So that's a really great pro, because then you don't need to, if you had 3 projects all the same size and you're not a monogamous stitcher, then you need to buy 3 scroll rods. So it's more economical for that. The only con for me, and this is usually what catches me up, is that you need to, as far as I'm concerned, when you're cutting your fabric, you need to make sure that you remember to add twice the width of this tape to when you're cutting your fabric. And I usually forget that part. So, you know, if you like to have a 3-inch border for framing, or because due to the design you want to make sure you've got fabric showing around it, like Fairy Winter Dream again, like that's one where I left a really big border. This is where, because at the end of the day, you will end up cutting this off of your fabric because it is glue. Now, there's a part of me that says if I just applied fabric to the back of this, then I could stitch this onto fabric and the same thing would happen. I will say I haven't done that yet. But so I have these as well. I have used this as well, generally on a project where it's like, ooh, I think you can get this off, because I usually forget. I happen to get this, yeah, so I don't know, again, I don't remember where I got this from. So I got a series. So this is what it says. So this is the Easy Stitch. It says Stitcher's Delight. I don't know. I don't think that's what it's called anymore. But it's called the No-basting system. That's what it is. So I got this because it was a series. Sorry for the glare. It's a series of multiple scroll rods, and wherever I stumbled across it, I was like, that's a good deal, and I got all of them. So it came with 6-inch, 8-inch, 10-inch, 12-inch, 14-inch, 16-inch, and 18-inch scroll rods with 2 sets of extender bars, which are 6-inch and 8-inch, and 1 set of knobs. Now you can always get a replacement set of knobs. You can always get extra sets of the extender bars. I've bought enough extra sets of extender bars that I think I'm in a good spot right now. So like when Jerusalem, we're going to talk about that in a minute, when Jerusalem got put away, I took off the extender bars, and the extender bars are just ready to be paired up with any of the other scroll rods that I've got. So that's that. So I have it. You can buy extra fabric tape. I've used these, and they were totally fine. So they just work like, they work exactly in terms of how your fabric is in terms of tautness. It works exactly the same. Again, the trick when you're putting the tape onto your fabric is don't just sort of lightly lay your fabric down and just put your stuff on it. The answer is put it on one end. This is where I go. It's probably better if you have like someone helping you so they can hold it taut and you can pull on the, again, you're not yanking on the other end, but pull the other end so that it's taut across as you're putting your base, your easy stitch Velcro-y thingy onto your fabric. Because again, it's that tautness is what's helping it keep it taut from left to right, horizontally. Okay, so I've used those. Again, like those better than the split frame ones. Okay, I also have, this is not rolled up very well, which is, I'm actually just going to take this off. I'm taking it off and going, hopefully I won't lose any of the pieces. Yep. Okay, I'll find that one. So 3 out of the 4 came off easily. Okay, so this is, I have roll a frame. I know you haven't seen this project. These are my roll a frame scroll rods, and I do like them. So there's the name, roll a frame. And I'm going to take these off just to show you why I like them. So again, so one of the things that I like about this particular, about the roll of frames, is that it means you can take your project on and off of your scroll frame relatively easily. So here it is, it's attached. I'm just going to take it off, and I'm not worried about it because I can put it on no problem. Now, careful because it's sharp. So the difference between this and the regular split rail is that roll of frame has these nails embedded, and you can see, depending on the light, see, there we go. So here's the outside. You can see how they're evenly spaced all the length of the rod, but they are nails. And again, this is what is keeping your fabric taut across. So you just put it into, and again, so on this side they've got the pre-drilled holes. Clearly don't do carpentry work. And so you put those nails through your fabric. Now, I am not worried about, and I'm going to show you. So it does leave a little bit of a mark in your fabric, but again, the spot where you're putting it in your fabric is, right, so you can see those nail marks in your fabric, but they're clearly in the margin, and regardless of what you do from a framing perspective, it's not, I think that's really hard for you to see. Sorry. Right, so there's the, like, so you can see this, but I'm not worried again, because that's not, regardless of what I do from a framing perspective, this is not going to interfere with how my framing is going to work out. But yeah, I'm going to say, yeah, you haven't seen this one before. This is another whip. Anywho, so the thing that I like about it is, again, so I like that it is very easy to change projects on. The other interesting thing is that they also, so these fit together very specifically. The holes in the nails are very specifically drilled to make sure that they match up. So you can't necessarily just take any pair that has the nails on it and pair it up with any other that has the holes in it. But they color code them to show you which sides go together. So this is a pair, and this is a pair. So that's how you know how to pair them up. And then the ends, so again they've got two, I'm not doing a good job. So there we go. So this is what the extender bars look like, and that's how they go, right? But they've got two sets, so you can decide, so you can do some adjustment as to how far apart you want these. You could do them narrow, or you could do 1 and 1. I tend to do the two outside ones. That's how I use them. So you just fit your scroll rod on, put this on the top end, and then they use these. That metallic noise is, one of them is now under the couch. So that's how that works. So I have used these. I do like these. I do find that they tend to keep your fabric taut across your piece. And then, you know, you just use your extender bar to make sure it's taut vertically. So I have used these. I like these. I wouldn't hesitate to get another one. Of course, I do look at my stash of scroll rods and go, I think you've probably got enough. I don't think I need to go out and get another one. But if you're thinking about one, Dina from Half Stitch Cross Stitch uses a lot of roller frames, and she really enjoys them as well. So yeah, I can say I've used these, and I like them. I will say my understanding, so certainly in the height of pandemic, I know that these were, it's like I just looked at that and went, okay, so that also didn't get put together correctly. Because he color codes them. Not that they were horrible, but for best results, colored ends go together. All right. So again, so during the height of the pandemic, I know that he was having a problem getting his supplies so he could make these. I think some of his supply chain issues have gotten better, but I will say this is a one-man show. There's just, again, I don't really know the location, so this is one guy in his garage making this product. So I do know that there can be a wait time to get these. When I got my pair, there were a couple of different stores that I went and I looked at who actually had them in stock. I looked at my projects and I went, okay, again, because I wanted to try them out, I went, this is one that will fit with a project that I already had in my stash that I was working on. I got them at this particular size. I don't even know how long these are, you know, but not inordinately long, right? So not bad. I wouldn't hesitate. I would say if you were buying these, don't hesitate to get a couple of inches more than you think you're going to need. Just gives you a little extra room. You know, if you're someone who like occasionally can't center things very well on things, don't cut your scroll. Don't buy your scroll rods. Like if you've got an 18-inch wide piece of fabric, do not get an 18-inch scroll rod because it's just going to fit, and you're going to want to, like I say, you're going to want to sort of stretch that horizontally across your scroll rods a little bit. So always go up a little bit. Like on Jerusalem, even with the way Jerusalem is, so I think the fabric is like 30, I think the fabric is like 35 and a half, but by the time I get it onto the scroll rod, like it's on the 36, not bad, but there's not a lot of wiggle room on there. And certainly I remember as I was basting that on, I was like going, there's not a lot of wiggle room here. You need to be really careful where you start this thing, because you don't want to baste all the way across 32 inches and go nuts. It's not actually, you got too close to the end. So don't hesitate to get a little more length on your scroll rods than your piece of fabric. Again, if you've got an 18-inch wide piece of scroll rod, do not get an 18-inch wide scroll rod. You need it to be a little bit bigger than that. I would go up at least an inch. I wouldn't hesitate to even go 2. That's me. And for fun, just because I'm going to want to freak out the people who, you know, I'm just going to hold this up because this is clearly not in my rotation. It's not a UFO. I still want to finish it. There's a story behind this. But yeah, that's another, I'm just going to smile because we're going to make this the screen grab this time. Christmas related. And again, so this is a weird one where very deliberately on my part, I did a center top start. But anyway, okay. Sorry, because I took off all the things. And again, so this is an easy one where actually now that I'm doing this, I think it's because I thought I was working on it a little bit differently when I started it. I should probably take it off the scroll rods for storage. So I will be doing that before this goes away. Okay, so those are the roll-of frames. Okay. So I'm next going to talk about Handiclamp. So this is the set, this is the pair that I bought off of Amazon using my aunt's gift card, so thank you, Auntie Sharon. Actually, with what's going on in my family, I'm very grateful I bought this with Auntie Sharon's gift card because I will always look at this and go, these are from Auntie Sharon. So what this is the concept around it is that it works like a QSnap. And so the reason, so how I found out about, actually how I found out it, that Handiclamp is from Caroline from Off the Grid Needle Arts. She showed these. And I went, I like the concept of that. And so again, why do I like the concept of this? Because it works, the way you attach it onto your scroll rod is like a QSnap concept, right? So again, for me, your ability to get a project on and off of a scroll rod easily is important to me, because then I don't have to have 400 pairs of scroll rods. Okay, I'd never get to 400, but if you're whipping more, and if you're whipping on, some of your whips are really large projects like Jerusalem, I don't think these come in 36 inches. I was totally fine buying scroll rods just for Jerusalem, because Jerusalem's going to be on there for a good long time, which I'm totally fine with. But again, the concept is that this is a clamp that that you just clamp your fabric on. But you'll see that I've got some accessories here on how I do this. And this, I don't think Caroline talked about this at all, but I'm also part of a Facebook group that talks about scroll rods and frames and stands and things like that. I'll put a link to that. I might even belong to 2 of them. And so I was researching, you know, before I put my order in, I was researching them in the Facebook group to see what people had to say, if people liked them, if people didn't like them, why that was, what they were doing. And there was a lot of fantastic information on there. But there was enough good stuff on there, and again, because I liked the concept of having the QSnap ability, that I bought these. Now, again, I'm dismantling this one because there is a couple of differences about this, and I'm very grateful to the Facebook group for all of their wisdom in what I learned from that Facebook group, because it absolutely changed how I put this together. These, there we go. Sorry, I need a little more wiggle room with this. So these work like a QSnap, but I will say, compared to a QSnap, holy smokes, does this hold it in. So unlike a QSnap, where I would say I can easily, once I get a grip on it, I can get my QSnap on and off no problem. The Handiclamp takes a bit of work. Now, again, because the glorious people in the Facebook group explained this is why I have what I have. So I have a piece of ribbon that I put inside of it, because when it comes to getting this off, it's the combination. I am generally pulling on the ribbon to get this thing off. It is, this is a tough go. Now, I don't know if this gets better over time, because it's not like I've been taking a lot of projects on and off of this. But this is one for sure. So the trick that I learned in the Facebook group is absolutely bar nothing. My recommendation is put a ribbon in there. When I first got them, I knew that Caroline said that they were tight and that they weren't going anywhere. And so when I got them, you know, I took the clamp off and went, okay, and put it on, and then I'm like, oh yeah, no, this is this is tight. But again, thanks to the Facebook group, I have ribbon in the center of these to help pull them off. And actually, now that I'm saying that, if you're one of those people who struggles getting the clamps off of your QSnaps, put a ribbon in it, so it just gives you something else to pull on. It will be fun to watch this video back, so I don't know how painful that looked to get this off. But again, so it's firmly held in there. I would also say when you're loading this onto the way, so again, practice over time. So the way that I load my fabric onto this is you need to make sure you've got some extra fabric, like loaded over the edge. I'm holding it the wrong way, but you're going to want more fabric on there to put this in, right? So so I generally put, believe it or not, this part stays on the flat surface. Then I lay my fabric over top of this, and then I shove the rod in. So right? So even doing it this way, it looks like, so putting these on, it's not so bad. So pulling this off is a bear. Like, so just using my hands, I'm not getting this off. Hence, thank heavens for the ribbon. The ribbon saves everything. Now, I will say it absolutely holds it taut, for sure. So I really like that. I really like the fact that, again, that you can take projects on and off this. So these are these are ones like my big toe. I started it with the my big toe one, right? So that's the good part. So, you know, took my big toe off, rolled it up, put it in its project bag, and then moved on to Morrison. And anyway, so I like that about it. You need to make sure that you've got your fabric in there relatively straight, because then if you don't have it straight, the problem is that it will then start, when you tighten the stretcher bar, it will sort of make it go a little bit diagonal. So just make sure it's straight, hence the, you know, keep that extra fabric across the top because it'll make it easier as you're putting it in. But on the bottom side, I have batting. Sorry, I should pay attention to. It's always good when you look in your lap. Don't think that's very helpful for you. So I've also got some batting. And again, this is courtesy of the Facebook group and their tips and advice to use batting with this particular one, because there's a little lip. I don't know that you'll actually be able to see it at all. There's a little lip on these ones that, again, if you're working on a project for quite a bit, when you roll it over this lip, it will put a pretty good crease into your fabric. But hence, again, this is not a huge width of batting. It's just enough to sort of cover, you know, where that part is, and it just helps with the creases. So again, you know, on this side, just, you know, that's not from the scroll rod. That's actually the center crease, which is still resisting to come out. But again, I don't think it's bad along here. I did find it interesting when I was taking this off, because at the top, because I rolled it down to do the alphabets, the crease across here right above the top, that is because I didn't put the batting in. So when I pulled it off, I'm like, ooh, note to self, as you move down, you better make sure. And I've got a piece of batting already cut for it. You know, it's just that when I was here at the very top, I hadn't rolled over that ledge, that lip. But clearly when I scrolled down, I think probably to do the red, I scrolled down and forgot to put the batting in. So note to self, put the batting in. So again, very grateful to the Facebook group for all their tips. I think they have been fantastic. So I really like the Handiclamps. Again, because it's easy to get on and off, assuming you keep the ribbon in. So I'm enjoying that. The other thing that I like about it is that, and this is why I left this on here, as unwieldy as it was. So I like the fact that so like on the American Dream products, they've got these knobs, which I don't have a problem tightening. I do think probably as I age that I may end up having a problem, but we'll deal with that when that point comes. I will say I do like the fact that these are like this. I enjoy that. So in terms of knobs, I like this style of knob better than the round knobs. I currently don't have any problems using the round knobs, but like I say, I can potentially see maybe as I get older that these will work better, but in that case, I think I'm just going to have to make a trip to the hardware store. So yeah, so Handiclamp was new to me this year. I'm enjoying it. So I've used it for the My Big Toe piece. I'm using it again for Anne. And again, it doesn't bother me to take these apart because it's, you know, going to take me That's the back side. There's the front side. You know, it's going to take me a few minutes to put it all back together, which is nothing. So I like that. And again, it gave me the flexibility. Like I say, I used it for my big toe. I'm using it for Anne. So there you go. Okay. I'm not done yet. I know, this is going to be a long one. Last but by no means least, and again, this is another whip you haven't seen. And again, not subtle. Let's do that. I will say, it's going to look like I didn't need to do all of this, but the what I can see on the camera versus what it really comes out is a little bit different. So again, so another not subtle one. You haven't seen this one. I haven't talked about it. I'm not necessarily going to tell you which one this is, but I have a couple friends who will be able to tell right off the get-go. So this is my Almonic frame. There are Millennium frames that come from a supplier in England. But what I have read online is like if you give them, so you have to pay for it up front, you give them your money, you are looking at probably a minimum of 12 months before your product arrives. Their communication with their customers is terrible. If you email them, you generally don't get a response at all. The people who have them love them. They think they're fantastic, which was where I'm like, I like the concept. I don't like the fact that I have to give your money and have no communication and I don't know where I am in line. And again, thanks to the Facebook groups, all these people were going to town about Almonic, which is in, again, I did a great job. I didn't even look. I will put a link to the site where you can order these from. They're over in Eastern Europe. They're certainly, when I ordered this, they were certainly noticeably cheaper than the Millennium frames from England, which was also a positive thing for me. And I will give one of them a whirl. I chose the size of frame that I did, which is large. In particular, this will give part of it away, so that all of the chatelaine designs charts that I currently had would fit on this particular frame. So in my head, I'm calling this the frame that I do my chatelaine designs on. And I like this as well. So when they talk about you put this in and it keeps your piece drum tight, it keeps your piece drum tight for sure. For sure. So it takes, if you want to watch, I don't think, there are videos online around how to load this up. And I'm not planning on taking this one off, but I can just show you from this side of the frame. So what happens is you've got this, I call it, it looks like a knitting needle thing. And so you place your fabric over top of this. Again, you've got to leave a chunk on the other side. And one of my friends said that's the part when you're, same thing, when you're doing you're cutting your fabric to fit on these types of frames, I would probably do the math as if not that you would have 4 inches on your top and your bottom to give you just that amount of extra fabric to make sure that you can easily load this type of frame. So you put the fabric over top of this opening. They show like use a credit card or one of those reward cards to just tap your fabric into. Some people can do it with their fingers. I actually did use one of my rewards cards to just tap your fabric in here. Then you slide the knitting needle over top of it. Not over top, it slides in through this end. So you can see the shape of that is what keeps it in there, right? So You slide it in from the end. These are pointy, so don't be leaving stuff bunched up on the ends. So then you just slide this in and your fabric is loaded. Now, I will say when I got it, it took me a few tries to get it in the way that I wanted. Again, you've got to make sure that you're loading this where your fabric is straight across. Again, this is not a good one to have your fabric on a bit of a diagonal. Not that anybody's purposely trying to load it on a diagonal, I get that. And then you just, these knobs on the end, so this is where you, actually I should probably just do this. I should just, it really helps when I can't. It happens because I'm doing this on camera, right? There we go. So then you tighten this up to the end. I'm not going to do it all the way, right, until you get this. So I would actually do this a little bit more. Yeah. And it ends up, when you do it on both ends, it's very taut. You absolutely, again, when you're storing this, there's no, like, do not leave this fully stretched out, because it will stretch your fabric out for sure. But it keeps it very taut all the way across. Yeah. So I like this one too. I know, not necessarily helpful. So the con on this one, I will say, is this is a very heavy frame. So this is not a frame that I would be comfortable using not on a stand. Now, part of it's because it's the width, but this is a heavy frame. So even if you brought it in and you cut it into if you brought it down to a smaller sized frame, this is a heavy frame. This is by far the heaviest frame that I have. So if weight is an issue, this may not be the frame for you. So that is the only con that I have. Again, I haven't checked recently about where their pricing is. I would still say my expectation is that their pricing is actually going to be quite reasonable. Is still going to be quite reasonable relative to other scroll rods. Again, I can say I personally have purchased from them. I am quite sure that I paid them through PayPal, so it came with all of the PayPal. You know, I'm quite sure I did it through PayPal because I hear great things, but overseas, payments, what happens if I don't like it? So it comes with the PayPal guarantees that, you know, if you're unhappy or you don't get your product, you've got all of those ways that you can get your money back. It shipped really fast when I ordered this. Now, this was years ago. It shipped really fast. It came surprisingly quickly. Again, don't forget, this is pre-pandemic. But yeah, so if you're worried about ordering from this particular company, my answer is you don't need to worry about that at all. My experience with them was great. You order, the sizes of the scroll rods are in centimeters, so you need to be aware of that. Don't think they're inches, because trust me, 12 inches and 12 centimeters are not the same thing. You order your sizes in centimeters. Your extender bars are also in centimeters. I got the biggest ones there because I would probably go down one size in terms of my sidebars. Not that it makes a huge amount of difference if I were ordering another one, but again, I got this because I think I can do a ton of projects on this, no problem. So, and now that I'm looking at this again, it's not that bad to load. So I probably should. I don't think this is wide. This is not wide enough for Jerusalem. I'm just having a look at the Nativity and going, I wonder if it would have fit on there. Anyway, so yeah, so I've done the Almonic. I have not tried the Millennium ones. The concept is very similar, but I've tried it. I like it. It absolutely keeps your fabric taut, which I like. Downside is this is a heavy frame. This one is solid. Again, the end, as you can see from this end, like this is not a lightweight. Okay, so there's that. I know I'm not done yet. So the other, oh, where's the bag? Okay. Sorry, there's like 3 more things to go. This could turn into a movie. Okay. So the other thing that I have for my larger scroll rods are these. So these are like, this is like a grime guard for a scroll rod. It's got elastic in them. You loop this around the ends. Again, so I only have this one pair. I honestly would like to get a couple more. I'm going to try and talk my mom, the quilter, into making me a few more of these. We'll see how successful I am. According to me, it will help use up her stash. Anyway, I need to figure out what sizes, and then I need to go make my plea. It would give her a nice summertime project, right? Anyway, I do like these because, again, as you're working across things, for me, it just keeps the fabric protected. So that's why I like grime guards and these ones. Again, I don't have them for all the sizes, and I would like to have a couple more. There aren't, so I got these particular ones from Fiberlicious, because before I had my mom make one, I thought I would maybe see if I liked the concept. But again, I don't know if you can send fabric to Fiberlicious. Fiberlicious does have a variety of fabrics, or they did when I got these, but I don't necessarily like all the fabrics. So that's the only thing why I haven't gotten them from somebody else. I don't know if there's, probably if I looked on Etsy, there would be ones. I've just made the personal choice. I've decided that I think I'm going to let my mom gift me the making of a couple of these. She doesn't know about that part. Okay, so the other thing that on scroll rods is, so generally on scroll frames, you get good tension vertically from top to bottom. You don't necessarily get good tension horizontally, left to right. And this, again, this is why this one had to stay. So for example, so the center of this is taut, but the end is clearly not taut. Now, this is for a couple of reasons. And one of the things that happens particularly on this design is because of the center star. So because I did all of the center star, and it's heavily, as you come from here and you work your way out, first of all, it's all Krynics, and so they, as you are scrolling this up, trust me, there's a really big difference between the diameter of this as you're rolling this up versus the sides where it has the DMC. So by the time, like, it's just, welcome to the sides. They're just not going to be as taut as they are in the center. Again, doesn't matter which direction you go. One of these sides is going to have a lot more of the Krynic from the star because it's done all the way to the bottom. So I have, these are side tension thingies. Now, I bought them as a package of 4. I don't have the packaging left for these anymore. I keep mine in a Ziploc baggie because I'm fancy like that. I was like, I just had a thought. I'm like going, I know where I could get a fancier bag for that. I know. I'll see if I can't find a fancier bag for that. Anyway, so it's a Velcro thing. And so what you do is you attach it to your fabric like that, and then you pull it around the scroll rod, loop it through the end, and Velcro it back, right? So you can see there's a difference. So there's two for each side to help keep your sides taut as well. So I have these, I have used these. These solve the problem for me. I know that there are some prettier ones out there where they look like they just hook into your fabric. I've looked at them, I have not tried them, and my problem is usually when I come back and I compare it to this, I look at this and I worry about how far in they hook, how far into your fabric they hook, right? These clearly just clamp onto the side, and again, this is clearly within the allowance that I have on the edges of the fabric. This does not hook into my fabric, right? It just clamps onto it. So I've looked at them, I've thought about them, I've pondered buying them, but I have not pulled the pin. And, you know, again, part of that goes to, don't get me wrong, I could sort of go, ooh, if they were a prettier one. But I haven't tried them. I don't know of anybody who's tried this, and I have these in my stash, and I know that this works. So anyway, actually it will be very interesting watching this back, because while I was attaching this, I wasn't paying any attention to what was on camera. I feel like it got in the camera. If not, I may have to, you know, do another section and bring it back. So again, generally, I don't know that you necessarily find that on smaller ones. There's certainly a unique situation to why that is occurring. I love how I'm doing them backwards. Why that's occurring on this particular piece. And I have used them on other ones as well. So I have used these. They work for me. I'm happy with these. I think on one of the videos, they were like going, oh, well, if you just bought X, Y, and Z, you could make them yourself. And I went, the chances of me making those myself are none. I will look. Again, I'm quite sure that I got these at one of my LNSs. I will look on Traditional Stitches website and see if they've got them on there. But again, I got a set of 4 and went, I'm good to go. I have not felt a need to get a second set. You know, again, usually because if I'm using on a project that's big, if I'm working on a project that's big enough to warrant needing these side things, it's not something that I'm taking with me anywhere. I'm not traveling with it. So one has sufficed for me. I haven't lost them anywhere. They're stored in their glorious, you know, Ziploc bag. Okay, still not done. I know, hard to believe. Here we go. More to keep going on about. You asked for it. Okay, so one of the things that I've also come into is, so because I have multiple scroll rods and scroll frames, and some of them stay on them, like that Almonic, the fabric is on there. How do you store, sorry, I think I just all went crooked. Let's just try to fix this. Okay, there we go. I still feel like I'm a little crooked, but we're coming to the end. How do you store them? And again, thanks to the Facebook groups, they've given me my storage solution. So like for example, Jerusalem, which is attached to scroll rods, it's not coming off and it needs to be stored. You don't need the end bars on them. But what I have is, this is a wrapping paper container. It's like an under the bed wrapping paper roll container. It's got handles on it. It's huge. And I love it. It is so for me, it's the perfect thing. The thing that you need to be very, very, very careful about is you need to check the dimensions of the wrapping paper container that you get, because they are not all the same size. And so for me, and again, for the size of projects that I'm working on, because I'm going to pick on Jerusalem yet again, because it's 36-inch wide scroll rods. Those, you need to know the dimensions of the scroll rods that you're trying to contain, and you need to check out the dimensions of the thing that of the container that you're looking at. I got this off of Amazon. I think the length of this is 40 inches, which is great, because then, you know, I'm just going to move this over. Not that you can see that. So there's one that's still has its extender bars on there in the box, which is fine. But like, so here's Jerusalem. There's a couple more projects in here that you can't see, and they're down there. But I got the biggest one because I've got a couple of, I had a really big project, still not a UFO, still love it, haven't worked on it in a long time, which is being stored in here. There's Jerusalem. I've got a couple of other projects in here. Oh yeah, I know. It's like what? Oh yeah, I remember. I have that one too. Anyway, right? So if, for example, Marbeck was ever going away, which it's not, because we're finishing Marbeck, you know, I could just take it off of its extender bars, and then I would put it in here in this box, and this has a spot. So I love this. So this is notable because this is where I keep the things that have the projects that have already been started, that are attached, and again, so attached to scroll rods and not coming off anytime soon. So this is also the container, like, so the banquet, the canvas piece from February, which is on its bars. So I'm not untacking that and taking that off that. I'm leaving that tacked onto the thing, and that's in this container as well. So this is where I keep the things that are in progress, is in this particular one. I really love this. Part of it is the fact, so this is a fabric-y one. Just because I get that weirdness where I go, like, you can get ones like the Rubbermaid ones, containers, but again, watch your dimensions, because they may not be as long as you think they are. I just didn't want to store my projects in something that's entirely plastic. Now, I don't know if there's any real rational reason for that or not, but that's just me. And I really love this concept of, so this is my thing. I've got a spot. Don't get me wrong, it's not necessarily easily convenient to get it out of the spot that I've chosen for it. But this is where I store the projects that have been started, that are really long and attached to scroll rods. The concept of this solution is the same for how I store. So this is not the only scroll rods I have. I have other scroll rods. You know, again, I've inherited some. I have some from other pieces. I have them in different sizes. So same thing, so that's where I have used a plastic bin. It is a wrapping paper bin. Again, check your measurements, because I remember the first time I tried to go to find this solution, and I had measured my scroll rods. So like if Jerusalem ever came off of its scroll rods, I'd need a container that can handle a 36-inch scroll rod. So 36 is the scroll rod plus the screws. So you need to make sure you know the dimensions of that. And I remember I had taken the measurements at home, and then I went to the store and went, "You're an idiot." Like, some of them didn't necessarily have the dimensions printed on the labels on them. So then I had to go to the other department and get a tape measure and walk it back, measure the thing, return the tape measure to where I got it from. So know your dimensions, and again, you need to be very careful. So for me, my wrapping paper container, plastic container, it's red on the bottom, translucent on the top. I know that it is over 40 inches tall. So I don't know whether they're called like extra tall wrapping paper, or I don't know. again, just make sure you pay really close attention. And it's the plastic one is where I keep all of my excess scroll rods and extender bars and all that kind of stuff. So, you know, there are a few of them where I've kept them actually paired up just because of the brands that they are, and I didn't want to interchange them. So some of them are assembled, and again, which is why I've got them stored that way. Because I know other people where they just go like, there's a series of bars, they, you know, again, do that self-velcroing tape to put around it to keep all of your scroll rods together, and then they just store the extender bars separately. I just have this bin where I just sort of go like, and into the bin. And win. So those are my solutions for how you store the scroll rods. Frames. Somebody asked me to talk about frames. I will very briefly talk about my frames because it's not going to be what you expect. So I don't have any brand name frame. So I don't have a Lowry stand. I don't have the stand that you can get from Almonic. I don't have a brand name frame that I use. I have a floor stand that I use, and I have a tabletop stand that I use. The tabletop I know that I got from Etsy, and it's working out not bad. I still think there's a couple of tweaks that I would like to make to it, but who am I? I'm not a carpenter. I'm not going to fix it. It's working out fine. Again, if I were asked for some design suggestions, I think I would make a couple of tweaks to it, but so far it's working fine. My floor stand I'm really happy with. I honestly don't remember where I got it from. I ordered it. I found it online. Again, I Google searched cross-stitch floor stands, and I saw what came up. Because there was something in particular I was looking for, and so I found this guy. He was in the US. He sent it up. It's working great for me. I've used it for a long time. I'm totally happy with it, but I honestly don't remember the name of it. It's been years and years that I've had this thing. If I can find him again, I'll link him in the notes below, but I'm not 100% sure that I can find him again. But I like the product. I use one where it doesn't clamp onto the sides. And there's a very specific reason for that. Apparently, according to my friends, I have a very unusual stitching style. I usually like to make my stitching go through gymnastics over the course of any stitching session. It's hard for me to explain. I just know that my friends go like, you're really weird. I like to be able to move my flip it over and reverse and go up and down and change, and you know, I really enjoy it. I had a friend who was like going, oh my goodness, I think your frame just did like a half ginger. Anyway, so I stitch unusually, which is why I was looking for something very specific. So my only advice to you on the frames is know what your stitching style is, do the research. Again, I had something that very specific that I was looking for, which is atypical. I've got a couple of friends who have Lowry stands, and they love them. They love them. So I can say that I personally know people who use those and love them. I haven't used it, so I can't give you my personal opinion on that. I know I have other people who love their needlework for stands. If you watch the Traditional Stitches website, both Janice, the owner of Traditional Stitches, and Rose Heck, who is the SAL leader for Morrison, they both have needlework for stands, which they love. Again, I haven't used it. I can't comment on it. I haven't used it. I haven't been tempted by it because I know the way I stitch is not compatible with, certainly with the needlework 4, I know that it's not compatible. I've seen people using them, and I watch how they work, and I'm really glad it works for them. I know that it won't work for my style of stitching, which apparently, again, because I make my frames do gymnastics, it's not going to work for me. So that's all I have to say on that. I can't give, other than I've only ever used the ones that I've got, and I bought them specifically online because I was looking for something specific because I knew what I wanted. So I don't know that that's necessarily helpful. Again, if I can find the links to the products that I've used, I will put them in the links below. I am not sure that I can find them again because I've had them for a while. I'm not even sure. Again, these are not well-known name, brand, anything. That's not what I'm using. So I think you just have to know what you're looking for in a stand, and work your way from there. Again, if you're, the Facebook groups are really great if you're looking for advice or what people like. And again, I would say you don't even need to post your question in the group. Just go into the group, search for stands. If you've got a specific brand that you're looking for, just put that into the search. You can do a search within a Facebook group and just search on the term that you're looking for and see what you come up with and read, because the questions have been asked multiple times before. Again, like when I was thinking about getting the Handiclamp, it's not like I had to go into the Facebook group and go like, so does anybody have any opinions on Handiclamp? I just searched in the group for Handiclamp and read every post that came up on it and what they said and what they liked and what they didn't like. And again, those tips about putting the ribbon in and the batting, best things I've ever read. Those were fantastic. I'm so grateful to the Facebook group, because that's where I got those. And yeah, absolutely read those, had those ready to go, you know, as soon as I put my Handiclamps into service. So with that was a really, 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 really long topic. So I hope that helped. If you have any questions or specific questions on anything that I've addressed, whether I've addressed them rightly or you need clarifications on anything, please just put them in the comment section below. I will absolutely get back to you and address them, whether it's in a response to your comment or in the next video. I will respond to you. And again, I hope that helps. And with that, oh my goodness, before this, this is longer than some movies. I'm really sorry about that. I hope everybody has a really great week. I hope spring is really sprung in the area you're in, because I'm facing a little bit more snow where I am. And I hope you find some time to do some stitching. I usually say that after. Stay safe, stay healthy, find some time to do some stitching, and I look forward to seeing you all next week. Have a great week, guys.